Aubrey was eagerly awaiting Jess's return from his business trip. Having a businessman for a husband was, of course, something to be proud of. 5 years ago, when they first got married, many of her friends even envied her. With a husband like that, financial worries were a thing of the past, and Aubrey agreed with that, more or less. But on the other hand, she hadn't faced many problems before getting married either. Yes, she was just a schoolteacher with a modest salary, but it was enough for her. She had no housing issues either. She had inherited a small house in the suburbs from her parents. So she wasn't married for money, but for love. But now, 5 years later, she no longer felt as happy. Her husband's job involved frequent business trips, leaving Aubrey alone at home. To make matters worse, they still had no children. What kind of family is this? She often wondered. No children, a husband who's rarely home, and me sitting here alone. Why does he even need this business? He could work a normal job and everything would be so much simpler. And now, sitting at home, she found herself waiting for him again, anxiety gnawing at her, arousing some unpleasant suspicions, but Aubrey pushed them away. Why think the worst? Jessie wouldn't cheat on her. If he had found someone else, he would have just told her. He wouldn't live a double life. There was a knock at the door. Thinking it was her husband who had forgotten or lost his key, Aubrey eagerly rushed to open it. But it wasn't him. It was an older man she didn't recognize, caught in the storm. "Hello," he said. "Please don't get alarmed. I'm not a robber or a vagrant. I was walking home, and you see how the weather got terrible. So I got caught in this storm. I couldn't find a ride, the buses aren't running, and I was wondering if you'd let me warm up inside, even just in the hallway. I can pay," he offered. "Of course, come in," Aubrey said. "No need for money." "It's just that I also have a little friend with me," the man mumbled, gesturing to a Dalmatian dog at his feet. "Oh, bring him in too," Aubrey said. "No need to leave your friend outside. Come to the kitchen, it's warm there. I'll make you some hot tea, and I'm sure I can find something for the dog too." The dog, looking frightened, Aubrey busied herself finding something to feed him while listening to the old man's story. "My name is Mr. Perez," he said. "I'm retired, live in the city, but today I decided to take a walk in the woods nearby with the dog. I thought we'd take a stroll, but then the weather turned bad." "It happens," Aubrey agreed, placing a steaming cup of tea in front of him. Just then Jessie called to say he would be delayed and might not return until morning. Aubrey was disappointed. She had really been looking forward to seeing him today, and had even prepared a special dinner. But what could she do? Work was work. At least she had a guest and his dog to keep her company. Mr. Perez continued his story. "The dog isn't actually mine," he said. "I found him recently in terrible condition, maybe hit by a car, but as you can see, he's fine now. No broken bones. He is a good dog. I've always wanted a friend like him, but I hesitated because I'm not young anymore. Dogs live 15 years, and I doubt I'll live that long. But now I've found a companion, and maybe his real owners will turn up." Meanwhile, the dog, whom the old man called Bailey, warmed up, ate, and began exploring the house. As the dog entered Jessie's study, it stopped in front of the locked drawer, sniffed it, and suddenly began to growl and scratch at the door with its paw. The old man hurried to get the dog away. "I don't understand what got into him," he muttered. "What could he have sensed in there?" "It's only a drawer. My husband keeps his papers in there. I don't even know which ones." "My husband doesn't involve me in his affairs," Aubrey said. "Maybe he sensed something strange, but there's no food in there, of course." "Indeed, it's very unusual. This dog is intelligent. You can tell someone has trained him before. He knows how to give his paw and understands commands. He's quite well behaved." Meanwhile, the weather didn't improve, and Aubrey offered Mr. Perez and Bailey a place to stay for the night. In the morning, after feeding them breakfast, she saw them off, again assuring them they owed her nothing. "Thank you, dear, for your hospitality," the old man said, "and forgive us again for barging in on you like this." "Don't mention it," she replied. She returned home and continued to wait for her husband, wondering what could be in that locked drawer. Finally, she decided to ask Jessie, though she doubted he would tell her. When her husband finally returned, he was in a terrible mood, exhausted, as if he had been up all night or doing some heavy labour. The woman rushed to him with questions and hugs, but he brushed her off. "Not now, Aubrey, I'm exhausted. Can't you see I'm barely standing? My job is very demanding. I have the right to rest." "Okay. Do you want breakfast? I've prepared everything." "I'm not hungry," he replied. However, as Aubrey hugged her husband, she caught a faint scent of women's perfume and noticed lipstick traces on his collar. So, it is another woman, she thought, but decided not to start an argument right then. Jessie went to bed without eating or even having tea. Aubrey began tidying up the scattered clothes. Her husband had never been neat. As she shook out his jacket, a key fell out of the pocket. Aubrey picked it up and pondered. "He won't tell me, but maybe I have the right to check what's in there. I won't take anything, just open it and look. What if Jessie absent-mindedly locked something perishable in there?" She felt guilty snooping, but her curiosity and concern were stronger. Aubrey opened the drawer and looked inside. At first glance, there was nothing unusual, just stacks of papers and documents, which she had no intention of examining. But then she noticed something strange. A watch, apparently costly. She picked it up, turned it over, and saw an engraving on the back. "To my beloved Wayne from his wife on his 30th birthday." The name meant nothing to her, but why did her husband have these watches? Did he buy them? But why buy watches with a personal engraving? Did he find them? That would also be strange. "Well, did you find what you were looking for?" she heard behind her a mocking voice. "No, Jessie, I'm not spying. I was just curious. You see," she started to explain, but her husband cut her off. "I see. Who asked you to snoop in my business? My competitors? Were you looking for some documents? Which ones? Tell me." "No, I don't understand any of that, and I don't know your competitors," she said, frightened. "But where did you get these watches?" Jessie snatched the watches from her hand, put them back in the drawer and locked the door. "What I keep in there is none of your business," he snapped, "and I don't want to see you doing anything like this again, understand?" "This is ridiculous, having to hide everything from your own wife in your own home," Aubrey said, choking back tears. She had so many questions and so much to say, particularly about how their marriage seemed to be unravelling, but this wasn't the moment. She needed to prepare for work, so she brought the conversation to a close. "I'm sorry, Jessie. I promise I won't pry into your things again," she said, and headed to her work at school. At school, fresh challenges awaited her. A new student, Billy, had joined her 5th grade class, and the other students began bullying him from day one. They had no particular reason to dislike him. They simply sensed his vulnerability and started taunting him, provoking fights and making his life miserable. Aubrey tried to defend the boy, urging her students to drop their cruel behaviour, but this morning she found Billy sitting alone, looking dejected again. She already knew from Billy's file that his mother had passed away when he was just 2 years old, and his father, a successful businessman, had remarried. And now his father was in the hospital in a coma after being attacked during a robbery. It was no wonder the boy was always depressed, and now he was also dealing with conflicts at school. As a result, he mostly talked to Aubrey, finding no one else he could connect with. During a break, they talked. "How are things at home?" Aubrey asked gently. "Any news about your dad?" "No change," Billy sighed. "And my dog is missing. You know, I had the most wonderful dog. My dad gave him to me when I turned 5. He was a pedigreed dog. Dalmatian, very smart and obedient. He knew all the commands. He couldn't have gotten lost on his own. I think someone must have lured him away, but I hope he finds his way back home." Aubrey suddenly remembered her guests from the night before and wondered if Bailey could be Billy's dog. She decided to visit Mr. Perez and asked him to come to the school the next day. Maybe the dog and the boy will recognize each other, she thought. That very day she went to the address the old man had left, and when he learned why Aubrey was looking for him, he promised to come with the dog to school. The dog was the first to recognize his young master, barking to greet him. "Comet!" Billy exclaimed, rushing to the dog. They recognized each other immediately. The boy cried tears of joy, and the dog licked his face with its big pink tongue. "So, his name is Comet," the old man smiled. "I called him Bailey, but he always looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not Bailey." Of course, Mr. Perez was upset, losing his recently founded companion, but there was nothing to do. Bailey had his legal master. He said his goodbyes and left, while Aubrey decided to walk Billy home. On the way, the boy opened up a little, sharing more about his situation. It turned out that he understood far more than most adults gave him credit for. "Ever since that awful Scarlet, my dad's second wife, showed up, we've had nothing but trouble at home," Billy said. "First, something happened to Comet, and then my dad was attacked. Maybe it was robbers. They probably took his money and the watch my mum gave him before she died." When Aubrey heard this, dark thoughts swirled in her mind again. The watch. She remembered seeing it in Jess's safe. Could Comet have been barking at the safe because he sensed his master's watch inside? She wondered. "What's your dad's name?" she asked Billy. "Wayne," the boy replied, and a chill ran down Aubrey's spine. She hadn't been mistaken. The watch belonged to the man who had been robbed. "But what does my husband have to do with any of this?" she thought, confused. "He couldn't possibly be involved in the robbery, could he?" Aubrey decided she needed to confront Jesse and get to the bottom of this. That evening she confronted him directly. "Jesse, I need to know about those watches. It seems they might be connected to someone. It seems they might be connected to something serious. I'm not accusing you of anything. Maybe you just bought them, but—" Jesse laughed dramatically, shaking his head. "My own wife suspects me of wrongdoing. Come, Aubrey, let me show you something." He led her to the drawer, opened it and said, "Where are these watches? Show me, because I don't see them." Aubrey peered inside, and indeed they were gone. Something was definitely off. Jesse had clearly hidden them, treating them as evidence. "But they were there, I saw them," she insisted. "What did you see?" "These were my watches. I must have left them out. And there's no engraving on them. You must have seen these, but your mind painted a different picture. You need help, Aubrey, before it's too late." But Aubrey was completely sure of what she had seen, although she couldn't prove it. After that incident, she began to fear Jesse, realizing he was capable of anything. As for Billy, she formed a genuine friendship with him. In class, he was no longer teased and was even treated with respect. Many envied him for having such a wonderful dog, Comet. Mr. Perez and the dog met Billy from school every day. A day later, after their first meeting, Billy called Mr. Perez and asked to let Comet stay with him. Scarlett, Billy's stepmother, was totally against the dog, and while the boy's father was in the hospital, he decided that it would be better for the dog to stay away from an angry woman. Mr. Perez reassured him that the dog would still be Billy's, but would live with him for now. time went on, Aubrey helped Billy with his homework and, understanding that the child did not want to go home until his father was discharged from the hospital, began inviting him to her place in the evenings. One day, Jesse returned home while the little guest was there. Seeing the child, he suddenly looked strangely embarrassed and quickly left, locking himself in the bedroom. Billy also seemed troubled and hid his eyes from Aubrey. "What's the matter?" she asked. "Do you know my husband?" "No, I don't," the boy mumbled. "Billy, I can see that you do. Please, tell me, it's critical." "I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't say this." The child was terribly worried. "I don't know your husband's name, but I just saw him at our house a few times. He comes to see Scarlett sometimes. I don't know why, but that's not bad, right?" "Of course not," Aubrey sighed. "In any case, it has nothing to do with you. It's our adult business." And leaving Billy to do his homework, she went into her husband's study. "Well, Jessie, nothing secret remains secret forever, does it?" she said. "Let's not make a scene or play. Pack your things and leave. I don't want to see you here any more." "I'm not going anywhere," he shouted indignantly. "You have no right to kick me out. I'm your lawful husband." In his outrage, he was ready to raise his hand to her, but he didn't get the chance. The thing was that the couple, absorbed in their argument, didn't hear the doorbell ring, and Billy opened it to let Mr. Perez and Comet in. And at that very moment, Mr. Perez looked into the study with Comet. Seeing Jessie, the dog fiercely lunged at him, and the man, to avoid serious trouble, had to retreat. Billy, who had been watching all this, exclaimed, "It's all clear now. If Comet could talk, he would say everything. But even without words, it's clear. Scarlett and this man tried to get rid of my dog, and they took Comet somewhere, maybe even beat him." "Don't worry, no one will hurt you now. I'm going to the police right now," Aubrey said decisively. At the police station, she told about seeing the watches of Billy's father in Jessie's drawer. Jessie was finally caught and couldn't evade the consequences. It turned out this wasn't his first offence, that he had been using his supposed business as a front for his criminal activities. He was a thief, and the police had been after him for quite some time. During the interrogation, it turned out that it was Scarlett who had directed Jessie to her husband by paying him. Moreover, she was counting on a lethal outcome to become a widow, but instead she, like Jessie, was now awaiting trial in custody. A few days later, Billy arrived at school with a broad smile. "Mrs. Parker, guess what? My dad woke up. They called me this morning." "What nice news," Aubrey replied, and offered to come with him to the hospital. Wayne had indeed regained consciousness and, according to the doctors, was expected to make a full recovery soon. They were allowed to visit him, and he was now fully alert. Billy rushed to embrace his father, overjoyed to have him back. "How could I not come back when you need me?" Wayne smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Dad, this is my teacher. She'll tell you later how she solved the real crime, the attack on you, with Comet's help." "Thank you so much," Wayne said to Aubrey with a smile of gratitude. Soon he was discharged from the hospital. Aubrey's friendship with Billy didn't end there. In fact, she soon became his mother in every sense of the word. After Aubrey and Wayne finalized their divorces, they got married. Mr. Perez didn't disappear from their lives either. He became like a grandfather to Billy.